to the Now What podcast. I'm your host, Arian Foster, a.k.a. Bobby Fino, the pod god. I don't know why the universe keeps blessing me with legends, man, but I got another one in the building. I highly appreciate you carving out some of your time to come rock with me, man. I got my man Jay Prince in here, man.
Oh, yeah. How you doing, homie?
What's up, boss? How are things with you, man?
Oh, man, things are beautiful, man. I'm enjoying this journey I'm on. You know, I'm enjoying my new book that's out, The Art and Science of Respect. And I'm keeping it moving because now I'm having conversations about movies, different episodes of documentaries. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. I'm about halfway through, man. I haven't finished it. My apologies, but it's a great read, man.
Appreciate that.
I've you learn as a youngin that OGs give out free game, man. And I tried to soak that up as a kid, but when you're not in touch with some of those people, books is how you learn. That's how I learned. Books, people have written their life stories, man. You can learn a lot from people, man. And that's what I got from this so far is it's just so much free game.
Yeah.
And
no, that's absolutely true. As I travel around the world, I explain to people that, readers are leaders. You know what I mean? It's so important, man, to read and to teach your kids and different things, the importance of reading, because that's something I didn't value. It wasn't like passed down to me in my youth. And, I didn't get it, but I was able to tap into the importance of it, along my journey. And, I'm preaching that real strong right now, man. And I'm also preaching, it's an interesting thing that you, had access and understand the value of OGs and wisdom, So I tell everybody as I travel, around the world, put down that IG and embrace OG. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's beautiful, man, because we do live in this this fast-paced, high-strung society where a lot of the young cats are they get kind of bamboozled into thinking that place and space is real life, and it is, but it isn't. And like you said, man, put down the IG and pick up an OG. What made you? Is that what made you like come out and want to write a book finally about your story?
Yeah, the combination of everything I just spoke about, I understand the importance of reading, and readers are leaders. And, everywhere I travel around the world, I always get asked how, what, when, where, how I was able to, accomplish the things that, I accomplished. So, my whole idea was, I want to leave as a part of my legacy something for big dreamers with little resources.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's what I was able to share in this book, my wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to fertilize, that sleeping giant that I feel exists in my people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a lot of them are in bondage. So if I can just fertilize that sleeping giant and awaken them to the importance of reading, the importance of, the different things that I was able to accomplish by the blueprints and things that I used in my life, I'll be happy with that.
I think that's an important thing. What you said is like people are in bondage, not necessarily in chains. Some of them are, but more so like mentally. And I think one of the things that you touched on in the book that really resonated with me as a kid was traveling. My dad always used to tell me traveling brought us to mind, and he always used to say this, and as a kid you don't really understand what it means. And you had a story about how you used to travel to go visit, I think it was your uncle who was locked up.
Yeah.
And just being able to get out of your neighborhood, and you said the irony of it was going to go visit him in prison kind of was like a vacation to you. And like that dichotomy right there was beautiful to me, because you don't want to see your people in chains, but it allowed you to view the world. It allowed you to look at land different and all of those different things. And I think that's what's really missing in our communities today is people don't get to see that. They don't get to
Yeah.
see that traveling, and
Right.
it changes people's minds.
Oh man, it's real power. You know what I mean? Having access to things outside of your community. Definitely when, the community consists of a lot of negativity. And, as I said, I didn't have opportunity to go on vacations as a kid. I didn't know nothing about a vacation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, to ride to that penitentiary was, opportunity for me to like, I'm in the back seat reminiscing as my grandmother was driving, not knowing that seeds was being planted. You know what I mean? I'm able to dream and see things that I never saw before, which caused me to want those things. You know what I mean? I'm riding, looking at land like, grandma, I want some land like this one
Mm.
day. Not knowing that, that would evolve into reality.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And, I'm a owner of 1,000 and some acre ranch
that's wild.
because of, that seed being planted on that ride.
Mhm.
So, access to power, traveling, getting out of the hood, going places is a powerful thing for any youth.
100%. It really
Yeah.
is. And I kind of want to dig into your story, man, because for people that don't know you, I don't think they understand how influential you were and are in our culture. Um, like I said, I was reading the book, and I didn't know this about you. You do something that's so important, I think, in business in general, is you have more than one revenue stream coming to you at all times. And you were like that as a young kid. I remember you
Yeah.
said something about you used to sell chicken eggs, right?
Yeah.
And then you used to have, I think, the lawnmower hustle or
Yeah.
whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. And you always had some way to make money. And I'm unsure if that was taught or if that's just like innate in you, you know?
Yeah, that was, you know what I mean? That was a part of just hustling. You
Right.
know what I mean? At the time, I didn't know that I was diversifying my portfolio.
Right.
You know what I mean? I had no idea that was taking place. I just was I saw opportunities.
Right.
And I'm like, I like having money in my pocket so I can make it here, I can make it here, I can make it there. And that's a unique thing to do, but
It is, though. It really
it's
is.
equally as important to not be a jack of a bunch of trades and a master of none as well. You know what I mean?
So how do you find that balance?
Well, you find that balance by really focusing in on one thing at a time, not spreading yourself out too thin. Because when you spread yourself out too thin, trying to do a lot of stuff, it's hard to like focus and make one thing, pop.
Yeah, it's hard to explain that to people, and it's more of an instinct thing, because I see a lot of my friends or a lot of people out there in general who got their hands in a lot of things, but
Yeah.
they're not really gaining any ground on it.
Right,
You know what I'm saying? So
right.
how would you give advice to people who are doing just that?
Yeah, I mean, my advice is to prioritize, have structure and accomplish one goal at a time. You know what I mean? Because it's a setup. Once again, I see it in the music game, for example. One of the things that I had to learn the hard way was I couldn't compete like major record labels that had all of this money. They used to try and break a record in a bunch of places at one time because of their cash flow, because of the machine they had. I had to figure out a way to hit one city at a time and break my record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's, that need to be applied to real life situations. When you was focusing on your career, in college and different things, it was football,
Right.
all the way up to pro, and you got paid. And then you probably diversified.
True.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the process of doing things. That's the art of doing a lot of things, and it's important.
And you developed that mentality at a young age, though.
Right.
So like when the time was right to diversify, you knew exactly what to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
You alluded to it, man, but I want to really dig into your backstory about how the music industry, pretty much Hollywood in general, or any kind of entertainment, is set up to where the coasts were the juggernauts of the day. So the East Coast and the West Coast. Obviously Hollywood and movies and all of those things, influenced the draw of people and the draw of media, major markets, especially with New York as well.
Yeah.
But you broke artists here in Houston at a time where you guys didn't have a lot of, like, there was no social media. You couldn't go viral, right? It was just the grind.
Yeah.
Like, how did you even begin to approach that at that time?
I approached it with a mentality of, okay, I got to break this poverty curse where my family was concerned.
Right.
You know, that was like my driving force to everything. You know what I mean? And I used that energy and brought it over to the music game. And I understood, you know, from like, I came from the streets. So I understood the different principles and the chess game of the streets on how to get things done, you know, and I brought that mentality into the music game to a certain extent. You know, I couldn't bring it all because, you know, you can't bring the things, the mentality and everything you do in the street to corporate America. But it's certain things that I understood from being in the streets that I brought over. And one of the things in particular was, you know, creating a movement, you know, a movement with like-minded individuals to accomplish the goal that you want to accomplish. And I wasn't, you know, in the streets, one couldn't like detour me, you know, run me off from something that I dreamed about that I wanted to happen. And I brought that in the music game. I'm like, we can do this. We're not going to allow the guys that's here from the East Coast that was monopolizing radio at the time to tell us we're not good enough to be played and to do different things. Because this is what was happening. You know, we had these guys here, and I respect, you know, New Yorkers hustle because they was monopolizing every radio, DJ position and everything here. And, you know, when we was trying to have a voice, they was laughing at it. Oh, they too country. You know, look at the goals. You know, I would hear all of this here, right? So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I got to make them believers. This ain't how this should go. This don't go this way in the hood.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't nobody come from out of town and run our hood this way. So, you know, I keep using that analogy because that's where I got the mentality. And I'm like, okay, here's the plan, you know, and we executed that plan and made it work.
100%. I think that's interesting though, that a lot of just people in general like to kind of demonize our culture, street culture, but there's so many parallels in between street culture and business.
Yeah.
And just like you said, I mean, you knew street culture. So you was like, okay, I'm gonna take what I know here and use it to be successful in business. And you did it at a very high level.
Yeah.
And that's so impressive, man. And I think that when it's the brilliance in somebody who can take. Go ahead, you good?
Is that you or me?
No, I think that's you.
Oh, okay.
You good. It's the brilliance in somebody who could take what they learned from a place that's probably not they learn some hard lessons from, but they make it applicable to something else.
Right.
That's not normal, man. That's you're an outlier for sure.
Thanks, man.
No, for sure. Yeah. I want to talk about a book that we both share in common, man. Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
My dad had that on our toilet when I was like, I think 12 or 13 years old.
Yeah.
And he said, just read a couple pages every time you got to go.
Yeah.
And I started to do that. And that book changed my life just like you said it changed your life. Can you talk about the influence on you? Because when I read that, your book, I was like, yo, that's crazy.
Yeah. No, that's a heavy book, man. I was, you know, along my journey with rap a lot, I had this friend of mine that was a lawyer I was helping go through law school. And he and I had a apartment together. And he gave me that book, you know. Always been a praying dude, you know. Every night I pray, ask the Lord for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So when different books or whatnot would come my way, I viewed it as, oh, this answer prayer. The Lord sending me something through somebody, right? So I started reading that book, and I think I started reading that book like that morning or something, man. And I found myself, I read that book to 12, 1 or 2 o'clock that night. I didn't leave out of the house. You know, I tell everybody it was like when Moses went up and got the 10 Commandments, it came out and his eyes was like real buck. That's the way I felt, reading that book, man, because, every gift that I had that I didn't realize was a gift, after reading that book, I'm like, wow, I think like this. You know what I mean? This is me. This is me. This is me. And then it also taught me the importance of structure, of goals, of writing it down. All the different things, man, that I was able to tap into was it just lit my, like gas on the fire with me. And yeah, I end up after reading that book, it ultimately led me to taking over my company because I was in bondage, with a partner at the time, a white guy that I felt was superior in a lot of areas, where his education and things was concerned. I felt he was superior over me. And after reading that book, everything reversed. I realized that I really was the guy. You know what I mean? I was the heart of everything, and not discrediting what he brought to the table, but I was no longer in bondage of I'd had to have a degree to be able to do certain things.
So what was it that was kind of like the light bulb in that specifically?
A combination of things. Most of all, a lot of the individuals I read about in the book didn't have degrees. And most of all, I was able to like identify with their thinking process of, the different things that they had accomplished. I'm like, wow, this is me. I think like this. And from there, once I started practicing, the very things that it advised to practice, I saw fruit, coming from the things that I was practicing. So I was like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah.
What you said is important, man. And it's another thing I read in your book, man, was kind of like a sense of identity, a sense of 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 foundation, right? Because a lot of the times, and why I think that movie, that the Black Panther movie, was so important to come out, was because little kids like us can see themselves on a big screen. Right? Representation matters, and once you figured it out before you had that really, but like once you figure out that there are no glass ceilings, and you can manipulate whatever you want to manipulate.
Right.
Like really, the sky's the limit, and like kids need to see things like that, and that's why I think you writing a book like this is really important.
Yeah, because I tell everybody I think a lot of street guys are some of the most brilliant people in the world and don't know it. You know what I mean? They the sleeping giants that I speak of. You know what I mean? Because they giants. It exists in them, and it's proven a lot of times through criminal activity that they do. You know what I mean? And a lot of it is genius.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So my advice to them, and I'm trying to awaken them, hey man, apply this hustle in corporate America, something legal. You know what I mean? Get yourself out of bondage. You cheating yourself.
100%.
Yeah, you cheating your family. You cheating everybody. So wake up.
That's beautiful, dog.
Yeah.
You always mention this too. Is like seeds. Like you always talking about how seed was planted here, seed was planted there.
Yeah.
Like growing up, what was some of the most influential seeds that you can remember, aside from we talked about the traveling and seeing land, but what are some other free gems I could squeeze out of you?
Yeah, like I think my spiritual seed was everything. You know what I mean? My mother put me on the bus that came to the projects to go in, at the age of 8, 9 years old to hear this pastor preach, you know what I mean? And I was mature beyond my age. So I'm like, Sunday school wasn't where I got it. I got it when I heard that grown man preaching,
Mm.
and I left with it. It meant something. I started practicing even some of the things that he was preaching about. But that gave me the foundation, man, of you know believing in God and my faith, which caused me to uh, have the belief if He be for me, the world could be against me. I became fearless of a lot of things because of my belief in God.
That's interesting to me, man. I've always wondered, okay, because you're in a unique position where you're you're a man of faith, and your background, you've been involved in a lot of underworld things.
Yeah,
So I always wondered, like, what are your perspective of morals, like what a good and bad, like how do you gauge that? Because
yeah,
I think because like growing up in some of the neighborhoods we grew up in,
yeah,
some of the things that society would deem bad, I don't
right.
necessarily deem bad, right?
Yeah,
So how do you kind of gauge that?
yeah, I kind of see it that way too. A lot of times people get this thing like misconstrued with God, His prophets. You know what I mean? They think uh, to be a believer, you have to be a punk.
Mm.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Some have to be weak about you. I say it that way. And it's the furthest thing from the truth.
Hmm.
Some of the prophets were some of the strongest gangsters. You know what I mean? These men were some of the toughest men that ever walked the planet. You
Mm.
know what I mean? And you know, I share that belief where a lot of them are concerned. And for myself, my belief, I'm a believer in reaping what you sow.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I really believe that. So with me understanding like the universal laws of God, like I really believe in them universal laws as well, then I don't believe in like abusing my power or my authority. A lot of people, it's a lot of stories go on that's not true where I'm concerned. You know what I mean? And then it's a lot of them that is true.
Mm.
But for the ones that's true, then I give a man what he asks for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other words, if it's love, I'm gonna give love. Uh, if it's that other, then I got to deal with that, because you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you got to
So
deal with that.
yeah, that's just how it is in real life.
Yeah.
So but I believe in being on the side of right. You know what I mean?
Right.
I ain't got where I'm at by being a bully or being a person that come from a place of darkness and exercise that
Right.
of darkness. Nah.
And see, that's the interesting part to me is like there's that old adage that says like there's honor amongst thieves. Like I'm not calling you a thief. I'm
Yeah.
saying in any kind of, I don't even know what to call it, black market behavior,
Right.
um, there's like a code, right? And
Yeah.
what's always interesting to me about cats like you is um, how can one command so much respect just on the strength of a name? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Right.
And I mean, I think I personally know, but I would love to hear it from your vantage point.
Oh, I think it begins with giving it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It always began with giving it and earning it. And earning it, that's a combination of ways. You know what I mean? You have to earn that. And, once you earn it, demanding it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Certain things that you can't allow. You can't do that around me. You can't do that to me. You can't say that to my family, you know what I mean? That's
Mm.
the demanding part. So it's those three combinations with having a word is so important.
Right.
You know what I mean? Your yes meaning yes, your no meaning no.
Mm.
And just being an honorable person, man. I think all of those things wrapped together is who I am
Right.
that has gotten me respect.
No doubt. I mean, just I remember when I first came to the city of Houston, I wasn't I didn't know nothing about nothing, but I knew you was here, and I knew
Yeah.
this was your city. But I mean, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and moved to California. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And coming here, just knowing that and seeing that
Yeah.
firsthand, like when your son walk in to the place, to the establishment that you're in, it's different. Like the mood changes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's another thing that's interesting is how the body of work that you have, it still reverberates in our culture today, like heavily, right? So like the number one artist in the world right now is Drake,
Yeah.
and you made a call to stop a issue from probably leaking outside of the booth, right?
Right.
That's insane power from a man that's really no longer involved in the genre.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel that I'm not involved,
Okay, yeah, no
Yeah,
disrespect.
I mean, because I lived through my kids and a lot of
Right,
the youth.
right.
I never like disconnected myself. And as long as, one is able to, spread that truth through the youth, then it'll stand.
Right.
You know what I mean? It'll stand forever. That lie keep changing. You know what I mean? But that truth will stand forever. And I think that's why I have a voice today.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I ain't unplugged out of the socket.
Got you.
My finger is still
Heavy. I got you. You in there. I got you. I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about it too much because it's kind of like gossip, and you didn't answer every question. But just from my perspective, because I'm a huge hip hop fan. I'm a hip hop head. I released a project.
Oh, you spit too?
I do my thing, man.
Yeah,
I do my
okay.
thing. I released.
I
I
didn't know
just had a show at House of Blues.
Yeah.
We sold it out, man. It was pretty
Beautiful,
cool.
man.
It was dope, man. I think everybody should find avenues to express themselves.
Yeah.
I happen to do it, and people like it, man. So I'm gonna keep it rocking. But so during that Drake and Pusha, I'm a fan of both, right?
Yeah.
And so from a hip hop perspective, I wanted to see him duke it out, right? What was it that you felt like crossed the line? I mean, obviously I know what you felt crossed the line, but what was it that made you be proactive and saying, all right, this is no more?
Okay, I understood the movement that was going to take place that a lot of people couldn't see or understand. You know what I mean? I understand, like, when you cross those lines where music is concerned, okay, it's finna get personal, right? And I'm like right in the middle of it. So I understood that I saw this portrait before. You know what I mean? I saw this portrait. I sit back and watched it unfold, and then I understood the ending results of the movie that I saw where Biggie and Tupac was concerned. So at that point, I'm like, nah, you know what I mean? Not on my watch. You know what I mean? It's just not finna kick off, because there was some real things gonna kick off.
Right.
So, that's what motivated me, man. I'm like, this is a movement. This ain't no moment situation where Drake is concerned. We all, work hard around this movement. So, you know what I mean? Let this be.
Right.
Yeah.
So just to follow, just from my perspective, man, because like I said, I'm an outside person. I'm a spectator, right?
Yeah.
So when I look at like the Biggie and Pac situation, I think that was kind of their pedigree, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean. I don't know them as men, but from the outsiders looking and growing up on them, that's what they portrayed in their music.
Right.
And when I look at Push, for sure he a lot of his content is drug gang, and that comes with that. But when I look at artists like Drake, he's more of like an artist, right? And that's not really his pedigree. So when I hear you say it was finna go there, from a fan's perspective, I didn't really understand that because I'm like would it have?
Yeah, no, most definitely, because he got ties, right? You
Sick of
know?
these niggas. I hear
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah,
I
nah,
can't knock that, man. And
yeah.
well, I'm glad you pulled the plug, man. Cause we don't want to see that happen, man.
Yeah, no, we ain't got time for that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with me. I didn't want to dig too deep in that, man, because it really ain't none of my business. But just as from a hip hop fan,
Yeah,
I really
I could
love.
dig it. I like a good battle.
Right.
You know, I like a good battle, and you know, he was cocked and loaded to, you know, to go there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But man, it would have been real ugly.
All right.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really would.
And see, that's the kind of cognitive dissonance I have with hip hop, where it's like I really love a good battle, but then I hate to see two black men beefing in the public eye. Like I have that. I like both sides. I feel both sides. So when you look at like past beefs, like Ice Cube and NWA, like when you look at that, did that cross the line?
No, not if they was okay with it. You know, you know.
It just depends. Okay,
That's what it's about. You know how it is, man.
I'm with
Certain
you, I'm with
people,
you.
you can say anything to them as a man, and they be like, okay. And then certain men tell you, hey, man, you can't say that to me.
I got you. I'm
You
with
know
you.
what I
That's
mean?
fast. It's fam. You like now? We pulling that plug.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So, are y'all like? Are y'all probably ain't on like no speaking terms? Did y'all reach out to their camp, or y'all just?
I mean, I had a conversation with Kanye, you know, with Pusha Manager. You know, I had conversations, and you know, all of them were ready for this to go away. So it was good.
So it went away.
Yeah.
Yo, man, you funny, man. It's
Yeah.
it's an interesting position that you're in, man. But it's well worth it. And just like from a fan's perspective, it's dope to see that side of it, right?
Yeah.
From a hip hop fan, I'm like, come on, man, let him rock. But then when you step back and look at the larger picture, I feel you. I feel you. I still wanted to see it though.
Yeah.
I'm with you though. 100% with you, man. I wanna go on a little heavier issue, man, which which you also mentioned in your book when you were talking about your fathers and how you viewed your fathers.
Yeah.
And how and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm going off of memory, but your mother told you your father was Adam.
Yeah.
Adam.
Right.
But your biological father was Ernest to your knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. And you said something that really struck me and kind of alluded to what we were talking about earlier, was how you felt if you accepted Ernest as your biological father, you felt like there was a death of the relationship that you had with Adam.
Right.
Could you dig into that a little bit? Because that's deep.
Yeah. Well, as I was about 14 years old or something like that, when I, you know, like first was introduced to the possibility that, you know, this is your father, you know, my mindset registered, well, if I'm getting, you know, this is my dad and this dude don't know, then I'm gonna lose him.
Right.
So, you know, with me, him being a part of my life, all of my life, that was like a debt to, you know, the thought process of losing him. So, you know, I went into that place where I'm like, whoa, you know, this don't feel good. It's the man that I've known all my life, you know what I mean, be my father. And now that he's possibly not, that's over. You know, so
Wow.
yeah, that's what I meant when I was explaining that.
That's deep though, because I recently had I had a conversation with some of my buddies, and it's kind of talking about this, but kind of not. But I like your perspective on it, because what they were explaining is exactly what you were explaining, and I can't relate. So we were having a conversation in a group. It was like probably like 12 of us. We all went out to dinner, some of my boys, and we were talking about changing my last name. Like I'm going to change my last name, and the reason why I'm going to change my last name is because I don't feel connected to that name, because it eventually, if you trace the lineage, it was a slave owner, slave owner's name, and so I don't feel comfortable walking around with that name anymore, or even passing it on to my kids. I'm gonna have my kids change the name as well. And I was trying to not convince them, but give them my perspective. And you know, when it came back, I was like, "Would you?" And they were like, "Nah, I can't, because I feel tied to this name
Mm-hmm.
because of my lineage. I'm like, but if you trace it far enough, like this is what it is. And they're like, yeah, but I don't feel a connection to that. I kind of want to get your perspective on that.
Well, everybody that know me, I started off as James Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons I changed my name was because, that was my father's last name. That was his daddy last name, his great granddaddy. The list goes on. So, I felt that, it was the right thing to do. And, I felt that way for a combination of reasons. One of the things that I never wanted to happen that almost happened to me is I almost dated my sister. You know what I mean? I'm in the ninth grade looking at my sister and looking at her first cousin to possibly, you know what I mean?
Courting.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
wanted to court him a little bit. And that was a strong court because her cousin ended up having my second kid. So, it was strong. And, with like, I'm thinking about it, she was a prince all the time. You know what I mean? I had no idea, didn't know. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to straighten it out as well. I'm like, okay, princes need to know princes, But I think that's a noble thing what you gonna do as well. If that mean that to you, your spirit leading you to do it that way, to go to the roots and correct the wrong, why not?
For sure. Yeah, no, it was an interesting conversation, man. Yeah. Those cats' perspective on it, and luckily I have, like, I told my pops I was gonna do it before I made the decision. I was like, yo, man, this was gonna happen. I mean, no disrespect, and he was like, fuck it, let's do it together. And I was like, I was like,
now, that's real beautiful, right?
It is, because he don't have no tie to it either, because he's one of those, he's militant.
Beautiful.
As you've watched hip hop grow, man, because you've seen it since it was a baby, and you helped really usher an entire generation and inspire an entire generation. Like I said, you still directly tied to the number one artist in the world today. How do you view hip hop today? Because it's not what it was as far as a voice for the voiceless. Now it's the number one genre in the world, and it's become popular music. Like what has that been like, seeing the evolution of something that you helped cultivate?
Man, it's been unbelievable, man. Definitely when you go back to places of individuals, where you got booed and you heard all of these different conversations that it wasn't going to be around long, and most of all, you witnessed the black president of the United States coming to fruition, and you understand that if it had not been for hip hop and tapping into those different genres and different households that wouldn't have allowed nobody else to enter, and hip hop was able to travel under the doors in the Bush's house and all of these different other people's houses that never would allow, our lifestyles and different things to enter. And I think, from situations like that, it helped, shape and mold the world to embrace Obama. You know what I mean? So it's that powerful in my mind,
No, it is.
Yeah, the things that happen from hip hop, and that's continuing to happen.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
It's dope seeing the evolution. But from your perspective, like I said, you have a unique perspective, man. So, how do you view, kind of like, coming from where you come from and how you came up and the things that you've been involved in, the things that you've done and do? How do you view, like, the responsibility of the message that's coming out from these artists? Because on one hand, I always say art is just a reflection of of the times.
Right.
But on the other hand, I think it's like a fine line between the influencers being the influencers. You know what I mean? So you're actually influencing behavior rather than just telling your story.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's you know, as it was important back then is equally as important today. But, you know, that begins with you taking control of your household. Like I was in hip hop strongly, but I didn't allow hip hop to be in my household strongly. You know what I mean? I didn't allow like my kids to have access to rated R movies and rated R hip hop because I understood as a parent what it had done to me, you know, coming up. I understood, you know, having the freedom to have access to all these different things, how it matured me, you know, beyond my age. So I'm like, okay, I got to protect my kids from this. You know what I mean? I don't want, you know, I was 9 years old and a man named Mr. Jack named me 19 because, and my grandmother said, why you call him 19? He said, this boy got the mind of a 19-year-old. I was 9 years old. I understood why I was 19.
Right.
You know, I had
Right.
access to all kinds of shit. So, you know, I think we have to take responsibility there first as artists and, you know, different people like that. You know, they gonna be who they are, to
Right.
be real about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Some people gonna be conscious of different things. This is like a real world we live in. And some people gonna take responsibility, some not. So we have to prepare at home, you know, home base first to deal with, you know, the gods and the devil of the world.
That's interesting. Like, don't get high on your own supply. You I'm with you, man. I hear a lot of like talk about well, if you just follow trends, like if you look at like rock, when rock was the #1 genre in the world, I think what kind of made it dilute was all the different subgenres that came from rock. So you had like heavy metal and you had like punk and you had this and this and that. I kind of see that happening with hip hop right now. It's like it's going off of, okay, you got trap music, okay, you got conscious rap, okay, and it's kind of like spreading out on a branch. Like, do you see that as an asset or a liability?
No, I think it's an asset. You know, I think the different expressions of different individuals is a good thing, you know, to be able to color that portrait the way they feel it. You know, I think that's good. You know, and I've always been for, you know, freedom of expression, expressing yourself however you feel it. So that's good.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just worry about, I don't want it to die. Hip hop raised me, man. Y'all helped raise me, man. So I don't want it to go. I don't want it to go nowhere, man.
You talking about a lot of that watered down.
Yeah, man. Because I see that be funny. Like you see, man, you see these like you see some of these concerts and it's just crowd full of young white kids, and like it's dope that you like our music, man. But it's like, man, we can't. It just don't. I don't know. I'm stingy with it. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the real just have to. Hopefully, it's a few real ones left.
Yeah.
To keep it, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Keep it real.
It might just be my ego, man, because.
No, I feel you.
Because it's like I remember growing up in like, I mean, I know you went through some of these same things because I read your book. It's like it's that hope. Like you said, hope was a concept. Like I related to that 1,000%, and it's just like you hold on to like these little things that give you that itty bitty, like, okay, maybe it's possible. And for me, that was Pac. Like Pac was my. I used to he was on my wall, and I was like, yo. I didn't want to be a rapper, but I was like, yo, I'm gonna make it out. And he gave me that little bit of hope. And when I see it kind of being prostituted, I was like, it feels funny.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you, man. I sit back and witness a whole lot of it all the time, you know. And a part of that, though, here's something interesting about that. Like a part of that is why I couldn't hear Drake in the beginning. You know what I mean? Because I was like looking for that I liked and I was accustomed to, and I couldn't hear him. You know what I mean? That sounded like, you know, I'm trying to discourage jazz. Jazz, man, you show, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But think if I would have,
Pull the plug on that
yeah,
one.
you know what I mean?
Break a lot of girls' hearts in this room.
Yeah. So we have to be open-minded and, let people paint that portrait they
You
want
know,
to
I
paint.
came around late on Drake too for the same reasons. Like, yo, he just didn't give me that feel. But after a while, it's like he's just so talented. Like, you just
Yeah.
can't deny it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
he's one of the most brilliantly melodic artists
Yeah,
that have came.
that's
And
true.
yeah, I'm a super fan of him, man.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you taking out the time, bro.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me on.
It's been an honor, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, man, y'all helped raise me. I've known you since I was a little one, and just to be honored with your presence is
Likewise, bro.
much love, man. Much
Yeah.
love. You the only guest I've been reluctant to ask this because you so fucking cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to. Every guest that's been on the show, I've had Snoop on, I've had Astronaut. Every guest I've asked, we're trying to get Jim Carrey on the podcast.
Yeah.
And so I asked all the guests to look in the camera and try to lobby for me to just talk to Jim. Give me whatever you got, man. I know you're gonna say like 7 words, but like whatever you got, man. Try to get Jim Carrey on the podcast, man. So your camera's right there, man. If you could just holler at Jim for me,
Carrey,
man.
you talking about that man that was on Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, man, the comedian.
Yeah. Yeah. Why you want him?
Okay. Jim Carrey is like in this stage in his life where I've listened to a couple of things that he says. Like, we don't agree on everything as like politically or just spiritually or anything, but I think he says some outlandish stuff. He's got a lot of flack for it, but he's like, some of the stuff he says is just so brilliant that I just want to dig into his mind. I think he's one of the most brilliant cats out there right now. And so I'm just trying to get him on just to rap with him for an hour or so.
Yeah. Well, Jim Carrey, you should come to this show before I make you an offer you can't refuse.
We don't want them problems, Jim. I promise, dog. Jay Prince, man, I appreciate you, dog. Much love, man.
Yes, sir.